Welcome, everyone. My name is Coach David, and we are here again with egelloC Financial Aid. And we are going to be talking about uh, a kind of not necessarily, I'll call it a semi-rumor that's out there that high incomes equal no financial aid. Okay. Now we will be we'll be diving into kind of specific kind of circumstances, things like that. I even have an example to kind of break down kind of why high kind of higher incomes, right, especially in today's day and age, and compensation packages are a little bit different, and how they don't necessarily mean that you have a lot of money in the bank. Okay, so it is August 27th, 5 p.m., right? I do see people putting their child's grade in the chat. It's great to see 11th graders, 12th graders. 12th graders, you need to talk to me. 11th graders, well, you can go ahead and sign up for a consultation as well, because this is obviously the important tax year for you, the 2025 tax year. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay. Now, as far as what we're going to be going over today, we're going to be talking about kind of like who do we help, how do we help, what are some of the strategies. I'll also be going over like a high income kind of example to kind of break down what it looks like to me at least, right? And then how I use that to kind of formulate what I think I can get for you. And I'll also talk about some of our results, right? Now, for those of you guys that do not know, right, we used to be Financial Aid Secrets. Our kind of parent company changed their name, and we have changed our name too. So we are now egelloC Financial Aid. Okay. Now, for those that don't know a little bit about me, right, I'm a former law school and college admission reader, right? I am a former lawyer. I have turned into college admissions and also financial aid, right? And I'm ready to help your family save money. Now, one of the things that I always like to do, sorry, this is from last week, right? But again, here is the high quality image instead of the fake one that I had before, right? But this is our new logo. So if you guys see this, just know that it is Financial Aid Secrets. That was our previous name. Okay. Now, I always like to start with a little bit of financial aid news so that you guys can understand what's going on in the world of financial aid. But I have some good news. It's kind of good news, but it's also a little bit, I'm not sure yet exactly, but let me share it with you. Okay. Now, the US Secretary of Education has promised, and I put that in quotes, right, that the new FAFSA will launch on October 1st for this next cycle, right? News outlets have said that it was certified in a letter to Congress when Congress asked for information about when it will be open, right? Now, I don't know what it means to be certified. I don't know if that is a binding contract. I don't know what it actually means. But what I do know is that they said that it was going to open on time last year and it didn't, right? It hasn't opened on time for the last 2 years, right? So, how much weight that carries with me? Not much. Okay. Also, there's going to be a new change in the kind of FAFSA process as well, right? About a month ago, right, I talked about how there's a lot of scams and fraud in the financial aid world, right? AI, right? People, like stealing people's identities, signing up for classes at a local community college, getting the funds sent to their account, and then basically not signing up for classes, right? So there will be a new process to verify identities. If you are selected as one of the lucky few people, because I don't think they're going to do a lot, they don't even have manpower to actually fix the site right now, right? But if you are one of the lucky few, you're going to have to talk to a FAFSA representative, provide your government issued ID, driver's license, state ID, US passport on the call so that they can verify that you are who you say you are. Okay, so that is a little bit of the news. Now, what's going to happen in the future? It's anyone's guess, but I'm going to try to keep you as updated as possible, right? With the newest information possible. Okay. Now, before we get into our training, again, this is really, really last call. Like we're literally hitting September. School has started for a lot of students. This is literally last call. So please do not delay when I tell you about our kind of, class of 2026 programs. If your student doesn't even know where they're going to apply, if they don't know kind of like what is going on with the applications, if they haven't started anything, you need us more than you know, right? So we do have different options, right? With different kind of response levels, with different pieces of the puzzle that are included in the packages. If you are interested, I do have a link for you, right? You can sign up for a quick, consultation so we can see what programs might fit for you and your budget, right? But you will contact us here, right? The phone number is 949-775-0865. You can text college to get more information about those programs. You can also use this QR code in order to book the call yourself, right? At a time that works for you. So If you want to text with our team, they'll ask you some kind of preliminary questions, see what works for you, try to get you on a call as soon as possible. Okay. For 2026, this is not a, oh, well, let's see what happens in a week or in a month, right? You are on the clock now, right? There are some schools where the kind of the early action deadline or priority deadlines are October 15th, right? You literally have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 weeks left before you have to turn those in. Okay. Not even 7 weeks. One, two, yeah, maybe about seven, right? Reach out to us ASAP. I'm gonna give people 5 seconds to take a screenshot of this page so they can have it, okay? All right. So that should have been enough time for people to take a screenshot. Okay. If you're still figuring out how to take a screenshot, right? It should be the bottom volume button and the power button on iPhones, on Samsung or Android devices. You should be able to swipe over your phone and it'll take a screenshot. Okay. Hopefully you guys have taken it. If you guys need it later, please let me know. Okay. But let us get into the training for today. High incomes and misconceptions. Okay. Now, I know that there's going to be a lot of parents out there that are like, oh my God, someone finally understands me, right? There's also going to be accountant parents out there. If you're an accountant or a CPA, or if you work in accounting, right? You're going to be like, oh, those numbers are off. I'm not here to be your tax advisor. I'm here to give you a rough idea of the taxes that are paid, so on and so forth, in the situations that are given. Okay. So let us move on to kind of what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to be talking about incomes. I know talking about money, especially in a public setting, is very taboo. Unfortunately, everything that we talk about, even when I'm talking about financial aid, is about money. Okay. So I apologize for being crass. I apologize for being raw, but I really want to show you guys how it is. Okay. So let's start, right? Let me take a drink of water because this is going to be a long tirade. Okay. All right. Let's get started. The old days of getting paid like, whatever dollars an hour and you tallying up your week's work, those are long gone, right? Now, I understand those jobs are still out there, but the majority of people are on salaries, right? And the salaries come in all shapes and sizes, right? Now, one of the things that I have seen over the past kind of 15, 16 years of me doing this is that compensation packages have become so elaborate that when I ask parents like what their take home is or what their total package is or this or that, I haven't been able to get a straight answer from even one family that can give me the exact amount that they make. Right. So we're going to be talking about some of those situations today, right? And why all incomes are not equal and how you should be thinking about yours. Okay. Now, in particular, because a lot of our families are in California, I am going to be talking about California incomes, right? Especially for those people working in tech backgrounds. Obviously, California, I live in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley families, right? Bay Area families. There's a lot of people that work in tech. Now, when it comes to how people are paid, it's very different, right? Some people it's base pay plus stocks or RSUs, or there's an incentive bonus, or there's a general bonus, or there's a housing allowance. There's all these different pieces of the puzzle that we need to think about, right? But the one point I want to get across to you is that incomes are very different. But today, we are going to examine one situation that I have found the most frequently with our families. And it is this situation: base pay plus bonus plus RSU. Okay. Now, RSUs, for those of you guys that are unfamiliar, or maybe you have them and you don't know what they mean, right, are restricted stock units. Basically, what it is they give it to you, right? But you do not own these things until conditions are met, right? Usually the condition is a certain amount of time, usually 3, 4, 5 years, right? So once that condition is met, these RSUs are now yours and non-restricted. Okay, so just keep that in mind there. Now, we are going to talk about one of the more common types, the base pay plus R plus bonus plus RSUs. So let's talk about the numbers here, right? So I'm just going to use like actual numbers to make this easy instead of talking about theoretical things, right? So we're going to start with the base pay, right? Base pay, it's 220K, right? Your bonus every year is $45,000 and your RSUs are valued at $150,000, right? Your total yearly compensation is $415,000, right? Now, most people, right, that have just like a regular base pay, right? They look at this and they're like, "Oh my God, that is crazy," right? this person has made it, right? They're doing super well, right? Well, kind of not, right? And I'm going to show you why, right? And let's get deeper into it, right? So let's start adding details to this situation. Let's say that this is your first year on the job. Okay. So you just got this new job, right? This is your compensation package, right? So your base pay is guaranteed $220,000 split over 12 months or 26 pay periods, whatever your work does, right? Your bonus may not be there, but let's say that you did get it this year, right? So it's supposed to be 40, it's supposed to be 45K. I don't know why I put 30, right? But it's 45K, right? Your RSUs 150K. But again, I told you there's conditions on it. There's a 4-year vesting period. Let's say 2025 was your first year of work. They will not really even be yours. You cannot sell them. You cannot do anything with them until 2029. That is not even something that is going to be considered. Now, if we kind of go down the path, the actual amount that you got this current year is 265,000, right? Roughly, right? I don't know why I changed these numbers. The numbers were off in my head. But anyway, it's about 265,000. Again, these numbers are going to be off because of that, but you have to pay taxes. California state taxes are going to be $21,302, right? $38,132 for federal taxes. The total amount of taxes that you're going to pay on your $265,000 income, roughly speaking, is about 60 grand. Okay. So that would be in years 1 to 4 of employment, right? So if you take 250 minus 60, your take home is 100 and roughly 90, right? But, right, let's take it one step further, right? Let's say that you have now worked there for 5 years. This is your fifth year. And now your first batch of stocks is vesting, right? So you have 250K or 265K, 200, let's just call it 250 because I used the wrong numbers, but 250, right? From stock vest from your base pay and your bonus, and your stocks are vesting in the amount of 150K. The amount of taxes that you have to pay now because your stocks are now vesting, they're going to make you pay taxes on that extra 150K, right? So, what ends up happening? Well, your California taxes increase from 21,000 to 31,677. Your federal taxes go from 59,434 to 86,942. The total taxes that you will pay on your $400,000 compensation package is $118,619, right? Why is this an issue? Well, let me show you. Okay. So first, right, you make $400,000 a year. Your actual cash flow is 250. Now, a lot of people might be thinking, well, why is your cash flow only 250? Well, it's because when people's RSUs vest, they usually just leave them there, right? It's not like they like actively go about thinking about selling them, right? Now, obviously, there are reasons why people will sell them or do this and that, but generally speaking, people will live it there. It's kind of like a little nest egg, right? So your RSUs are technically yours to do with what you want, but a lot of people, right, they just leave them because, again, it's an investment, right? But if you do not sell your stocks that are vesting that year, this is what your actual cash flow looks like, right? It is 250K, right? That is the cash flow that is hitting your account, right? Minus $118,000 in taxes. Your cash flow for the year is 132,000, right? That's 13.2K a month, right? I don't know if you guys remember what I just showed you like in year one, right? In year one, your cash flow, where is it? Where is it? Oh, I didn't put it here. Oh, no, it's right here, right? So your cash flow was actually $190,000 a month. That is literally $60,000 more per year, right? When you didn't have your RSUs, right? So there is an issue here, right? You are making more, but your cash flow is less, right? Again, this is just one example. Your situation might be different, right? So do the math and figure out kind of like what it looks like, right? But I think a lot of people will be surprised. It's like, yes, I understand you have a lot of assets there. You have a stock portfolio that's worth this much or that much or whatever it is, right? But unless you sell those things, it's the same thing like your home. Until you actually sell your home, you don't realize any of those kind of like profits or money, right? Now, technically speaking, can you get a loan on your stock portfolio? Sure, you can, right? But it's very different than actual cash flow. Okay. So this is why people need financial aid. Yes, right? Yes, your assets are getting larger, but unfortunately, colleges do not take stocks to pay for colleges, right? You need to liquefy them and make them into cold hard cash, right? Another problem is that selling these stocks most always confers onto you capital gains taxes, right? Which further drives down the amount of aid that college wants to give you because they see that you have a cash infusion, you have investments, you have all these other things, and they're like, well, we can give you less, right? Now, every step that I just explained to you along the process is made to hurt you, unfortunately, right? So while families' incomes have risen, especially in California, in the Bay Area, right? If you actually look at the cash flow, I talk to hundreds of families a year that are like, yeah, like my income's this, but I'm drowning, right? And I'm like, at first when I first started this, I was like, how are you drowning? You make 400, $500,000 a year, right? And then as I got deeper into it and tried to understand it, I understood why. Because they're paying taxes on things that they're not liquefying, right? I understand. A lot of families are out there are going to say, just liquefy, right? Take the capital gains, right? But there are reasons why people won't do that. There's also reasons why people can't do that. Okay. So again, every family's in a different situation, right? Now, I want to talk about strategies because, well, the incomes are what they are. We can't do anything. We can't ask the company to actually make it a loan and like a $400,000 loan every year, and then we'll just pay it back month by month, right? From our work, right? The world doesn't work that way, right? So I want to talk about some strategies that make sense. You probably already know about some of them, but some of them I want to like there's a lot of financial aid companies out there nowadays, right? Because this is what I'm involved in. This is all that is on my social media, right? On my Facebook, on my Instagram, on everything that I look at, it's literally everything about financial aid. There are companies out there that say that these are the ways in order to lower that amount so that you can get financial aid. The problem is that not every family is in a position to take advantage of these things, right? So if you guys do have questions, make sure to put them in the Q&A, make sure to put them in the chat so that I can hopefully give you more specific answers to your questions. Okay. Again, there are no bad questions. Do not be shy, right? If you send the questions to the host and panelists, only I can see it, right? If you send it to the Q&A, only I will see it. Okay. So again, don't be shy with your questions. Okay. But let's get into some of the strategies here, right? Now, some of the ones that you already know, right? Contribute to your retirement and also your spousal contribution, right? You can deduct student loan interest if you're still paying off student loans, deduct educational expenses, deduct business expenses, right? Especially for businesses, yes, there's a lot of things that you can write off. But one of the biggest things, especially if your company is like producing actual products, right? Or services, right? Then R&D is a huge thing, right? So if you can get like an R&D kind of like expense, right? Then that could take out like your whole business kind of income for the whole year, right? There are also other pieces, right? You can also take out alimony and child support, right? You can contribute to your health savings account, right? Now, these ones, these are more like the next one I'm going to talk about. These are more of the things that other companies talk about, but I know that they are not viable for a large portion of kind of the world, right? So I'm going to go ahead and go over them, but just know that these are less common tactics, right? Obviously, if you're in a financial position to do this, it can help, right? But a lot of people invest in things that have depreciation benefits. One of the biggest thing being like a rental property, right? There are kind of situations where you can front load the depreciation of your kind of rental property so that your overall income goes down, right? Other things, oil and gas investments, right? One of kind of the creative ways that I've seen families take advantage of these is that for oil and gas investments, there's kind of like a loophole, right? And so basically what happens is if you're invested at a certain percentage in oil and gas in a certain investment, right? Then you can take the business expenses of that investment and basically use that on your tax return, right? I'm not talking about the percentage that you own in it. I'm talking about the whole thing, right? So there are opportunities there. And then the final one is life insurance and annuities. Okay. Now, there's someone that walks around my office every single day trying to sell me life insurance and an annuity, and I tell them no, right? Maybe I should talk to them. But at the end of the day, here is how life insurance and annuities can help, right? Life insurance and annuities, right, depending on if you get the right one, can lower your AGI significantly. But that means that you need to put a lump sum of money into that life insurance or annuity. Let me just give you a very quick example of that. Okay. Let's say that this year you made $700,000 this year. Okay. And let's say that you had $700,000 laying around in cold hard cash, right? Post-tax dollars, and you decided, you know what? I am going to, buy like a life insurance policy that isn't touchable until I'm 70 years old, right? And I'm going to put it in there and let it grow and kind of let that happen, right? If it's the right type of life insurance or the right type of annuity, you can do that. Your income for the year will be zero. The question for me is, how many families, if your income is 700 and you basically take that 700 and throw into annuity, how many families can live on zero cash flow, right? There's not many families that can possibly do that, right? So again, that's why I'm saying they're great ideas in theory, but in practice, it doesn't necessarily work out that well, okay? There's also other kind of strategies. If you own a business, you might want to hire family members, right? More expenses, more this, more that, right? And then you can write off those expenses as well. You can also accelerate business expenses. If you have like a huge thing that you have to pay off and you were kind of waiting till next year, well, why don't you pay it off this year? Then the money that's in your business accounts and running your business will be lower, right? Business types also help, right? So I know that there's a lot of families out there that, have like, that do a little 1099 work on the side, contracting, or they have a small business or this or that, right? There are different types of businesses and there's different protections, right? Now, for financial aid protection, the only one that really helps, right? Sole prop does not help, right? LLC does not help. S corp does not help. The only one that helps for the purposes of financial aid is a C corp, right? Now, depending on the level of activity and kind of profits of your business, it might make sense to do a C corp or it might not, right? It really depends on your area of kind of your area and kind of like what you're doing, right? But the C corp does provide protections because they don't look into the C corp, right? But for sole prop, LLC, and S corp, those are all pass-through entities, especially in California. Okay. We have a question here and it says regarding financial aid, which number matters, gross income or AGI? So they will look at your gross later or like kind of your net afterwards, right? But they are also looking at your AGI. That's the first number that they consider. Okay. So just keep that in mind, right? Other things, donor advised funds. Okay. Donor advised funds are kind of like the life insurance or annuities, but you never end up seeing them, right? Let me give you an example. A donor advised fund is a fund created to give back to the world, give back to charity. Okay. So it's basically like a fund you create and that you put money into saying that you are going to donate this, but you have the ability to pick and choose where you're going to donate to, but you get the tax benefits for that current year. Again, let me give you an example. Let's say a family made $200,000 in a year, right? They decided to create a donor advised fund for $100,000, right? Then their AGI would drop basically to $100,000 if they created a donor advised fund. Now, that money they put in the donor advised fund, that is money they are never going to see again, right? But the question becomes, is that a benefit or not to the situation? Also, well, maybe they just really wanted to be charitable that year, okay? But I don't know anyone that's giving 50% of their income away, right? There is also take a sabbatical or unpaid leave. This seems like a great idea, but how many businesses and business owners do you know would let their employee take 2 years off? I don't know, right? It's a very, very hard thing, right? Obviously, there are other kind of like situations, maternity leave, paternity leave. These are different things, right? But going up to your boss and saying, "Hey, you know what? I need to take a year off," right? I don't know how well that would go. And again, so that's why I say some of these in theory are great, right? But in reality, they don't necessarily work out, right? And then we have invest in opportunity zones, right? So there are certain areas in certain states and cities and so on and so forth that are considered opportunity zones, right? If you do make an investment in those opportunity zones, that can also bring down your AGI because again, they take that out of your income. Okay. So There's so many more, right? But for a lot of families, right, there's only limited options on what they can actually do year after year, right? So again, keep that in mind, right? I also wanted to kind of bring up alternative strategies because again, not everyone can do everything that is on that list right there, right? So the first thing that I talk about is shifting assets. Okay. So one of the like the key point that you need to take away from this is that I don't want your student to have anything, right? Now, I know parents, right? You want to start early with preparing them for kind of like life later on down the road. We don't know if Social Security is going to be around when your kids are older, so on and so forth, all these different things, right? But if the student has things, I need you to take it away from them, right? So a brokerage account in the name for their future, right? Your student's future, an UDMA with 100K in it. It doesn't help you at all. It helps you for the future, right? It doesn't help you with financial aid and for college, right? So one of the things that parents you have to remember, if there's anything in your student's name, if you decided, hey, you know what? For the future, we're going to buy a house in our student's name and then they are going to be on the deed, right? That house, the market value right now is $1 million. You basically told the college, you don't need to pay for anything, right? You told them from $1 million, right? They take 20% if it is the student's asset. So that means that they just all of a sudden came up with $200,000 to pay for college, right? If you're going to a UC, you basically paid for it on your own. If that is currently the case in your situation, you need to talk to your tax people, move everything out of your student's name. It's going to hurt you very, very bad. Okay. I do understand the want and need and desire to prepare for your student's future, but again, I want you to save money when you're going to college, right? So if your student, especially if they are a 2027 grad, right? For 2026, nothing you can do if you're meeting me for the first time because your 2024 taxes probably have been filed. There's nothing you can do to go back in time. But if you are a 2027 family, please go ahead and reach out to your kind of like accountant, whoever does your taxes, whoever does your financial planning, make sure that they move things out of the students' accounts and names. Okay. All right. We have a quick question here. It says, I have a checking, savings, 529 accounts for my senior. Should I move the money? What can I do with the 529 accounts to shift the assets? So for 529s, right, I've always told families the 529s do not help you. Okay. Your checking and your savings, I'm not too worried about, right? But your 529 account, the best thing that you can do is no longer be the owner of it. Give it to kind of your brother or your sister or mom or dad, right? So like grandparents, right? That is the best way to kind of do that. Now, the other way to do it is also to move it to another sibling, right? The beneficiary to another sibling. Because the question specifically asks if you have a 529 in the student's name. If they ask, well, if it's, if John is the one going to college and we have it in Jeff's name, well, we don't have one in John's name, so we're okay. Okay. We have another question here. It says, what if your income is from Roth conversion? You're not really getting the cash as it goes into retirement plan, but it's still taxed as ordinary income. We'll have to talk more specifically about that, right? Um, are you saying there's a little bit of clarifying we need to do? Are you saying that the income on your tax return, right, or kind of like your AGI is you taking money out of your Roth? Or are you saying that you rolled it over to a Roth, right? I might not be understanding the question correctly, right? Um, we have another question that says, what if the assets are under the students? Okay, if you rolled it into a Roth, one of the things that you need to be very, very careful about is that when the colleges look at your income, they look at that rollover as if it is income, right? So I had a family, right? Um, they were like very close to retirement. They were both working part-time. Income is super low, right? But in the critical tax year, they rolled over their investment savings into a Roth. And it was on there, it was over $1 million. And when the college saw that, they were like, oh, where'd that $1 million come from? Oh, we don't need to give you any money for college, right? When they should have just based it on their income, right? So there are like little things here and there that can hurt you. Okay. Um, it says, what if the assets are under a student's retirement account, like IRA? Is it being treated as a taxable account? Yes and no. For the state schools, the UC, CSUs, other state schools, probably not, right? For private schools, yes, they will look at it. Okay. We have another question that says, how are estate trusts regarded, right? They're going to look into it, right? So again, but it depends on the school. The state schools don't care too much about it. They don't have the manpower to look into it. Private schools, they will ask you for the trust documents, right? Some of them that are really, really picky, right? So again, depending on what's in there, what your percentage is, this and that, so on and so forth, we might need to make some movement, right? And then we have another thing that says, so don't roll into Roth IRA on the year you need financial aid. Correct. Or so this is a very important question. If you're moving something or rolling something over into a Roth IRA, I don't want you to do it the year that is important for your student. Now, the year that is important for your student, you take their graduation year and -2. So if they're graduating 2026, it's going to be the 2024 tax year. If they're graduating in 2027, it's going to be the 25 tax year, so on and so forth. So try not to do it while they're in college. If you're going to do it, right, and you have like a 2029, we'll do it now, right? So those are things that we need to prepare for early, right? Because once we're in college, we also do need to continue filing for the next 3 years as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay. Now, going back to kind of alternatives, outside scholarships, there's a lot of pros to these, right? There's millions of scholarships out there. All you have to do is look. A lot of them don't even require essays. There's a lot of local regional scholarships that have higher win percentages. A lot of them are not based on financial need, but rather merit or characteristics or qualities of the student. And there's so many, like by state, city, region, college, so on and ever, right? So there are a lot of outside scholarships, but there's also cons on the same side, right? Unless you are a low income family that receives the Pell Grant, the colleges will not allow you to stack your scholarships on top of each other, right? Now, if anyone has questions about this, go onto Google and look up scholarship displacement, okay? And you'll understand what I'm talking about. But basically, if you're not a low income student, right, a Pell Grant recipient, right, you cannot stack outside scholarships on top of the financial aid that you're getting from your school, okay, and the government, right? The second is that many families don't understand how long and like how long the kind of scholarship is good for, or requirements of it, or if renewal is even possible. Okay, so a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, I want a $15,000 scholarship." They receive it, and then they go back to it. Like they contact them next year. It's like, "Oh, I want my next year $15,000." They're like, "What are you talking about? This is only good for 1 year." Okay, so again, the length of time that you can receive something, and if you can renew, is also up in the air, right? And then here's like the biggest one. Obviously, for smaller ones, the win percentage is great, like or greater. I don't want to say greater, right? So for the smaller like scholarships, it's about a 10% win rate, right? For the scholarships that are like 15, 20K plus, it's like 1% or less that you're going to win it, right? So I always give the example, right? Let's say that your student is applying to $500 scholarships. In order for them to get 20 of those scholarships and win 20 of those scholarships and get 100 or get $10,000 worth of money for college, that means that at a 10% win rate that your student would have to apply to 200 scholarships, right? If they were trying to fund a whole like UC education, right? The UC education usually costs about $45,000, right? So that's 500 times what? My God, I can't even do math right now. It's 90, right? That means you have to win 90 $500 scholarships in order to pay for a year. In order to win 10% and get 90, that means that you would have to apply to 900 scholarships, right? Do you have the time for that? Does your student have the time for that, right? Even clicking and applying to 900 scholarships would take weeks or months, okay, of straight nonstop work, okay? So that's why I say that those are cons. Okay. Now, loans, right? There are alternative loans out there than what is offered by the kind of federal government, right? The federal government like the student loan rate, not great, not bad. It's kind of just very average, right? But for parents, it is exorbitantly high, right? So I put here better rates, but scarier tactics, right? So the pros of alternative outside private loans is that you usually can get a better rate based on your credit, right, than what you would at the federal government, right? And there's also more options, so you can shop it around. Okay. Now, the cons, there are less protections. This is more like a traditional loan. It doesn't have any protections on it. They're not going to be nice with you, right? If they don't get a payment, they're coming for your house, car, and your paycheck. Okay. So remember, when you're looking at loans, you're shopping around, you need to understand the fine print, what might happen, right? If payment isn't made or if it's late or this, that, you need to understand the full situation. Okay. So looking at the full picture, right? This is another thing that you really need to kind of think about, right? There are a lot of families that I talk to, and it's like, hey, mom lost their job, right? Hey, dad lost the job, right? Someone's sick, right? This, that, so on and so forth, right? If something like that happens to you, right, it does no one any good to suffer, right? If you have documentation, turn it into your school. Say someone, someone's been terminated, someone got let go, right? And then your school can reevaluate. But, right, I kind of put a but down here at the bottom, right? It says it needs to be significant. If a parent lost a job where they made $1,000 a year, right? They're not really going to change anything for you, right? When it hits over 30%, they will reevaluate your situation. Now, there's a difference, right? If your income went from, let's just call it 150,000 to 100,000, and if your income went from $1 million a year to $666,000 a year, right? Obviously, the lower your income or the more that it drops, right? There's going to be a significant increase on your financial aid, right? But I always tell families this, the crying baby gets the extra bottle of milk, right? So if you keep bugging them, right, even if it's not super huge, you will get something, right? Okay. Takeaways, right? High incomes aren't always high. That's what I'm here to tell you today, right? Just because your compensation package says that you make $500,000 a year doesn't mean that $500,000 is hitting your account, right? It might be less than your buddy that makes way less, right? So keep that in mind. Again, I understand your stocks have value, but what I'm talking about is cash flow that you can use, okay? So make sure you understand what your income really looks like, right? Um, but, right, I want to make sure that it's this, right? The reason I want you to look at your cash flow is not to feel happy or sad, right? It's so that you can have a conversation with your student about what your kind of like family can comfortably afford, right? I get it. You'd sell your left kidney in order for your kid to be able to go to the school that they want. I really understand, but I found that there's a lot of students out there that are also very realistic about kind of colleges, right? So I would want your families to have that conversation, right? It's not always about a certain school or a certain this or a certain that, right? It's about what you're going to learn, right? So have an honest conversation with your student, right? Don't just say, you know what, if you get into that school, we'll figure it out. If figuring it out is we're going to sell the house and then, we're going to do this, or I'm going to pull money from my retirement, you need to rethink the priority here. Okay. All right. And so with that, I do want to go over some results. I go over these results every week, so you guys are probably sick of them. So I'm going to fly through them. Okay. So this family, they make $350,000 a year. I was able to get them around 30, 35, $37,000 from various private schools in California, and then Fordham in New York, right? This family, over $400,000 a year, 40K a year from Baylor, right? This family, just over $200,000. I was able to get them $30,000 a year from UC Davis. Okay. So I always say this, people take me up on it sometimes they don't, right? But one thing that you might have noticed that has changed is the phone number. We're trying to separate it out because we're getting a lot of cross text with everything. So if you are interested in talking to us, right? Coach, our assistant, Seth is standing by, right? Her phone number is 650-860-5201. If you text money to that phone number, we will get in touch with you. We will ask you some questions and then get you set up with a call. Okay. Now, one of the things that I will say is this, right? If you sign up, make sure you show up because, right, we want to make sure that we're able to talk to you in the right time frame. I've already had a family where it's like I did see they signed up for a call about 6 months ago, right? If I had talked to them then, I would have been able to save them about $37,000 a year, right? But they didn't talk to me then, and they decided to come back as like a last ditch effort. Unfortunately, after they did all the things that they did, I can't do anything anymore. Okay. So if you sign up, make sure you are there. Okay. It's 15 minutes. I'm not asking for a lot of time. Okay. And at least you'll leave with the knowledge of if you can be helped or if you can't, or if you're what type of situation that you're in. Okay. You can also use the QR code here. to book a consultation as well. But our new phone number is 650-860-5201. You can text money, right? And we'll give you some information on financial aid, get you set up with a consultation. But I do want to make sure that we also open it up for questions. I saw a bunch of questions as I was kind of going through. I answered most of them, I think, right? If there are additional questions, though, I want to make sure that we open up this time so we can answer them. Okay, so I'm going to give some people a little bit of time to go ahead and ask or type in their questions. Okay. We have a question in the Q&A real quick. What does it cost for your consultation? Our consultations are always free. Okay. I've never charged for a consultation in my life. I don't plan to, right? The only thing I ask is that you guys show up, right? If you need to reschedule, definitely let our team know like the day of, because we usually text you guys, right? But if you're 2026 right now, if you have seniors right now, we need to talk in the next like I don't know, soon. One of the things that you might see though is my schedule is like it's really booked, right? Let me see if I can show you guys, right? Um da-da-da-dum. Let us see if I can open up my calendar or calendar link to see, right? If I can show you how booked it is, right? All right. So, unfortunately, there's no more times in August, right? Well, I mean, there's only a couple days left anyway, right? In September, oh, something went wrong, they said. Okay. In September, I'm basically booked here. My bookings start here. I have 3 slots available, right? Thursday, I have a couple more slots available, right? This time, you'll see that the time slots are, I'm basically full kind of like throughout the day, right? If you cannot find a time, please text us, right? Our phone number is here, but text us so that we can kind of like Seth can work with you so that you can we can find a time that's a little bit early for you, especially if you're a senior right now. Okay. All right. So looks like there's some questions here. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. So the first one is, what materials do we need to provide for the consultation? So generally speaking, during the consultation, I'm going to ask you about your income and the breakdown of it, right? Who's in your family, dependents, right? I'm also going to be asking about assets like your home, other rental properties. I'll be asking about kind of like your retirement plus, investments, other things, what the rough value of those things are. I'll also be asking about if you have 529s or not, right? And the rough values in those things. I don't need an exact dollar amount. I just need rough ranges, right? But hopefully your rough ranges are close. I had a family, they're like, yeah, so I think the 529's at like, I don't know, 30,000. And then they came back when they were turning in their forms, like, sorry, the 529's actually at like 95,000, right? So that's a huge difference, right? So I just need to know what's going on. Okay. We have nothing. It says, my daughter is eligible for CalVets. Is it beneficial for us to use negotiating at private schools? No, right? So I think the question that you're trying to ask is, so we have CalVets. So if we're going to a state school, we're not paying tuition. So can we use that as leverage in order to get a private school to give us more money, right? I think that is your question. If you can clarify, that'd be great. Yes, no, maybe so. Yes. Okay. So this is something that I talked about in kind of like our Ivy League training secrets that we used to have, right? But if you are going to compare, you have to compare apples to apples, right? A state school that costs $45,000 a year and a private school that costs $90,000 a year, unfortunately, are not the same apple, right? So they're not going to care that you're getting free tuition there. But if you do have CalVets and things like that, you this is a little bit different, so you might reach out to like they usually have like a Veterans Affairs office or things like that. You might see what they can do to match that discount, right? um Things like that, right? So again, our colleges are very friendly towards veterans and veteran families, so hopefully they can do a little something for you. Okay. There's another question here. It says, sold our house and are renting one for now. Is it worth trying to buy a new house prior to applying for financial aid? So I need a little background from you too, person that asked about selling the house. So if you sold your house in 2025 and you do not buy a new house in 2025, I'm gonna guess that the house value that you sold it at is much higher than what you bought it at, right? Especially if it's in California, right? And if that is the case, right, then yes, you need to reinvest, or else you're going to pay a huge amount of capital gains on the like, and again, especially if your student's like a senior, you're going to be paying a huge amount of capital gains. That's not what you want in this current year. Okay. Let's see here. It says having less money in bank but owning a rental home, how is it seen by reviewers, right? So the money in the bank is never really an issue because realistically, if I told you that I need you to go and take all the money out of your bank accounts, like it's easy to show it as zero, right? So I think the question that you're asking me is, should I buy a rental home instead of doing that? There are benefits, right? Because one of the things that I talked about was if you do invest in property, you can basically take the full of depreciation of it in year one, which should lower your income, right? Plus, if you have to make renovations and do this and do that, so on and so forth, there's going to be other additional losses from that business, from that kind of rental property. So there's other things that you can that can help you lower that income as well, right? We have another question here. It says, what does financial aid edge mean? You will work with us to develop strategy for aid, or you help with FAFSA. So our program is a completely done for you program. It's not a program you buy and we tell you what to do, right? So we take everything from the start. We do everything for you so that you guys cannot make any mistakes. Because before, when I first started out in financial aid, that's actually what I did. And then I realized that parents go back in after we're done with our session, change a bunch of things, and then screw it up, right? So I have taken over the whole process because I do not want any more screw ups. Okay. Um, and it says also, is the initial consultation with you? Yes, the initial consultation will be with me. Any points of contact, except for kind of like asking you to kind of send something, right? Or asking you to confirm a meeting. That will be done by my support team and that's because I'm asking them to do it. But all points of contact will be directly with me. Okay. We have another question that says, can we receive a copy of this presentation? Unfortunately, we do not share our presentation, but if you want the replay, then, if you're in our Facebook group, we'll make a post. You just let us know. We'll go ahead and send you the link so you can watch it there. Okay. Okay, it says yes, no worries. Thank you. Thank you. We also have questions. Tuition and scholarship for second year based on income tax for the following year, or just apply one time for the first year. Your financial aid application is like a tax return. Every single year, you have to refile every single year. So it's not just based on the first year. The first year is based on, like, let's say that your student is applying for they're graduating 2026, they'll be headed to college in fall of 2026, right? So they'll use the 24 tax year. Then for the following year, they'll use the 25 tax year. Then for the following year, they'll use the 26 tax year. Following year, they'll use the 27 tax year. So realistically speaking, 4 years of tax returns are needed, and you have to do the application every single year, right? Which is why our program is set up as a 4-year program, but we do not lock you into 4 years of service. We do it year by year because we want you to be happy with your service and then come back for that year 2, year 3, year 4. Okay. So keep that in mind there. Okay. We have another question. It says, house seller here. We have a few years into college, but now have a lot of money in the bank from house sale. Better to put into another home rather than have all the cash. Yeah, you should talk to your CPA about this. But if you bought a home a long time ago and you just sold it, right, for probably a good price, right? It's like I said, if you're especially in California, if you're sitting on a house for 10, 15 years, you probably made a killing on it, right? Now, if you do not reinvest that in a like for like exchange, you will pay capital gains taxes if the property value went over, I believe it's like 2 or 250, right? So if you bought the house at 400, the sale price was $1.3 million, you're not going to pay capital gains taxes on anything up to 600 or 650. But on the other $600,000, you're going to have to pay capital gains taxes on it if you don't reinvest it into another home. Okay, so you should talk to your CPA and you should probably do it quickly because you only got 4 months to find a house that you want to buy, right? And that's not a lot of time, right? Even apartment hunting sometimes takes more than 4 months sometimes, right? I suggest that you do for you not paying taxes, right? We have another question that says, should we stop contributing to 529? My answer to this has always been yes, please stop, right? Just put it in your brokerage account. instead, or put it in your money market account. That's a much better place for it to grow, right? The average growth rate of a 529 is 3%. Yes, I understand the growth in a 529 is not taxed, right? But would you rather get 3% or get 10% returns and then get taxed on it? I take the 10% and get taxed on it, right? It might end up being really close or like roughly the same thing, but I would rather see it grow faster. Okay. All right. Wow. We went super long today. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to go this long, but there was a lot of questions. Okay. But we will be back again next week. Okay. Oh, you know what? I'm going to leave this up so that you guys can kind of get the links and do the things that you need to do. Again, our phone number is there. Don't feel kind of weird like reaching out to us. We do want to make sure that we kind of share all the information that we have. We can get you in for a consultation. We want to do all those things because we want you guys to save money. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this up, right? I'll be back next week at 5 o'clock. If you guys do have any other questions, please reach out and we'll talk to you guys again soon. Okay. All right. Everyone have a great night. Bye bye.